In 1968, a 20-year-old college student named Barbara Jane Mackle was kidnapped from a motel room in Atlanta, driven to a forest in rural Georgia, and placed inside a fiberglass box with a battery-powered fan and a small jug of water. Then they buried her. She stayed in that box for 83 hours, 3.5 days, underground, alone, in the dark. And here's the part that nobody talks about when they tell this story. The box wasn't strong. Barbara could have broken through the lid at any point. She had the physical ability to escape the entire time. But she didn't know that, so she just waited for 3 days. That story should bother you, because it means the thing that kept her trapped wasn't the box, wasn't the dirt, wasn't even the kidnappers. It was information. She didn't have it, and you're about to. So let's walk through exactly what to do if you ever wake up in a coffin underground. And yes, the fact that this information exists in a step-by-step format is deeply unsettling. But the alternative is not knowing, and we just covered what happens when you don't know. The first thing you need to understand is that you are on a clock, and the clock started before you woke up. A standard coffin holds roughly 800 liters of air. A person breathing normally burns through about 550 liters of oxygen per hour. So you've got somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes of breathable air. That's the math when you're calm. But you won't be calm. Nobody is calm when they wake up in a box underground. Military survival schools actually test this. They put trainees in coffin-sized boxes, close the lid, and time how long it takes for the panic to start. The average person, 90 seconds. That's all it takes before the claustrophobia triggers hyperventilation and your breathing doubles or triples in speed. And this is where it gets brutal, because hyperventilation doesn't just make you feel worse. It literally cuts your survival window in half. The difference between a person who dies at the 45-minute mark and a person who's still conscious when rescuers arrive 3 hours later almost always comes down to one thing: breathing rate. That's it. Not strength, not fitness, not willpower, how fast you're going through the air, so you force yourself into a rhythm. Slow inhale through the nose, 4 seconds, hold for 2. Slow exhale through the mouth, 6 seconds. You do this even though every nerve in your body is screaming at you to thrash around and yell for help. Because here's something nobody tells you about screaming underground. One prolonged scream costs you roughly 10 minutes of breathable air. 2 or 3 screams and you've just deleted half an hour from your life. Screaming into a coffin is the most expensive thing you can do with your lungs. Once you've got the breathing under control, you need to figure out what you're actually inside. Run your hands across every surface. Knock on the lid, knock on the sides, knock underneath you. If it sounds hollow and thin, that's good news. You're probably in a cheap casket or a plywood box, and here's something the funeral industry would rather you didn't think about too carefully. Discount caskets are built to look nice for a 2-hour viewing. They're not engineered to withstand sustained force. The lid is almost always the weakest point, held down by simple latches or thin nails. These things are furniture, not fortresses. If it sounds solid and heavy, that's a different situation. You might be in a commercial steel casket and you're not punching through steel. Your strategy shifts entirely to conserving air and hoping someone finds you. But here's the thing that actually tilts the odds in your favor. The vast majority of real-world, buried alive scenarios don't involve caskets at all. Kidnapping victims end up in wooden crates, plastic storage containers, improvised plywood boxes. Things built by criminals in a hurry, not engineers with blueprints. The person who put you in this box was panicking too. They weren't thinking about structural integrity. They were thinking about not getting caught. Now. Before you do anything physical, take off your shirt or rip a sleeve off. Use a sock if you have to. Tie it around your nose and mouth like a filter. This sounds bizarre until you understand what happens next. When you break through the lid, dirt is coming in. Depending on depth, it could be a slow trickle or a sudden cascade of soil pouring onto your face, and one deep breath of loose earth will block your airway completely. There are documented cases of people who successfully broke out of their coffins, who survived the burial itself and then suffocated on dirt during the escape. They solved the hard problem and died on the easy one because they didn't cover their mouth first. Now you break the lid. And this is where every movie gets it wrong. You don't have room to swing your fists. The space above your chest is about 18 inches. So you don't punch, you don't hammer, you push. Bring your knees up as far as the space allows. Plant your feet flat against the lid. Your legs are the strongest muscles in your body, and this is the one time in your life that actually matters. Push upward. Not a quick burst, a sustained, grinding push. Keep the pressure constant. Cheap pine and plywood will crack in the center before the edges give way. If your legs can't reach the lid, cross your arms over your chest. Press your palms flat against the wood and push from the shoulders. You're not trying to explode through it. You're trying to create one crack. Because once the wood splinters, everything changes. And this is the part that genuinely messes with people's heads. When the lid breaks, soil starts pouring in. Every instinct tells you this is catastrophic, that the situation just got worse. It didn't. It got better. That dirt is your way out. Because you don't burst through the ground like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. You swim. As soil pours through the crack, you push it toward your feet, pack it down beneath you. More dirt falls in. Push it down again. You're slowly trading coffin space for upward movement. The box fills with earth below your body while you worm your way up through the broken lid, inch by inch. Arch your back, push your shoulders through the gap, use your hands to clear dirt away from your face, move like you're doing a backstroke through wet sand. It's slow, it's suffocating, it's the most claustrophobic thing imaginable. And it works. But there's a problem you might not have considered. What if you're disoriented? What if you don't know which direction is up? This is where it gets strangely elegant. You spit. Just spit. In total darkness, with no spatial reference, your inner ear can be fooled. But gravity can't. Saliva always falls downward. If it hits your cheek, you're on your side. If it rolls toward the back of your throat, you're upside down. If it falls away from your face, you're right side up, and the surface is above you. It sounds like something from a survival myth. It has saved actual lives. Now, how deep you are determines how difficult this whole process is going to be. A standard grave is 6 feet. That's roughly 800 to 1,000 pounds of soil sitting above you. Compacted earth that gets harder to move through the deeper it gets. But here's where criminal psychology actually works in your favor. Digging a 6-foot grave takes hours of back-breaking labor with a shovel, and the person burying someone alive isn't exactly in a leisurely mood. They're rushing, they're paranoid, they're looking over their shoulder, so the overwhelming majority of criminal burials are 2 to 3 feet deep, shallow enough to cover, fast enough to flee, which means shallow enough for you to reach the surface in minutes if you know what you're doing. When your hand finally breaks through the topsoil, stop. Don't pull yourself out immediately. Clear the dirt around your face. Create a pocket of open air, and breathe. You've been running on limited, recycled oxygen for however long you've been down there. Carbon dioxide has been building up in your bloodstream. Your muscles are weak, your thinking is foggy, and if you try to haul yourself out right now, there's a real chance you'll pass out with your torso half above ground. Give yourself 30 seconds of fresh air. Let your blood reoxygenate. Then claw out, one arm then the other. Roll away from the hole. Lie flat on the ground. Breathe. Now here's the part that reframes this entire video. Everything I just described, the pushing, the swimming, the spit trick, the shirt over your face, all of that is useful. But the survival rate for being buried alive is determined almost entirely by one variable, And it's not any of those things. It's whether the container is airtight. If there's no air exchange at all, a sealed steel casket, a locked plastic box, you have 60 to 90 minutes regardless of how calm or strong or resourceful you are. The oxygen runs out and your body shuts down. No one has ever self-rescued from a sealed container after 2 hours. The physics won't allow it. But if there's even a tiny gap, a crack in the wood, a loose seam where the lid meets the wall, a gap around a hinge, your survival window stretches from minutes to hours. Barbara Mackle lasted 83 hours because she had a ventilation fan. Some kidnapping victims have survived days in buried containers with nothing more than a thin plastic tube running to the surface. Which means the variable that actually kills people in this scenario isn't the burial. It isn't the darkness or the dirt or the weight of the earth above them. It's the 3 seconds after they wake up. The 3 seconds where their brain decides whether to breathe or to scream. Every scream costs you 10 minutes. Every minute of hyperventilation costs you 2 minutes of air. And every person who's ever been asked this question says the same thing. They'd stay calm, they'd breathe, they'd be rational. The military data says otherwise. 90 seconds, that's how long the average person makes it before the panic takes over and the breathing goes haywire. Everybody thinks they'd breathe, almost nobody does.